It's good to have her by my side today. Sylvia is the Director of Projects at Binnies, Hong Kong, with extensive experience in civil drainage and sewage design, flood management, and water resources planning, design, and implementation in Hong Kong and overseas. Sylvia has completed a number of drainage master plan studies, including the hydraulic design of the Happy Valley Stormwater Storage Scheme. She is currently working on a number of similar projects to minimize flood risk in Hong Kong. Today, she will talk about the drainage improvement works from the past to present, and with the future outlook towards flood resilience in Hong Kong. Welcome, Ms. Sylvia CHAN.
Thank you for having me here today. I will be sharing with you on our experience on urban flood resilience. First of all, I would like to start with asking you all a question using the tagline of one of my favorite game shows. So out of 100 people survey, what are the most top tech cloud associated with resilience? Well, since this is online, I will provide you with a response. So the top response, top tech cloud that we have, I can see is recover, function, absorb, adapt, cope. The number in the parentheses are showing how popular it is in the search. In terms of recover, my interpretation to this is flooding is tolerable as long as the city can recover quickly. So water is our friend. You like to meet up with your friend from time to time. As long as they don't give you any trouble, it's okay to see them. But as long as if they are causing trouble, we don't want to see them anymore. So this is a way to interpret it as long as we are handling the water well, it is okay, tolerable to flood as long as it is recovered quickly. In terms of absorb, we are implementing a lot of green infrastructure in the city these days to increase the infiltration and encourage the groundwater replenishment. In this way, we are reducing the stormwater runoff as well as reducing the flood risk in the city. So COP and functions, we are increasing the functions of the drainage network in order to cope with the increasing rainfall and tidal level. So these are all the keywords that I will cover in the later PowerPoint. So from the previous presentation, we have Bruce presenting the climate uncertainties. So looking in the past, we are predicting the future. So on the left-hand side of the PowerPoint of the screen, you can see the recorded rainstorm data from the Hong Kong Observatory. The rainfall depth, you can see, recorded from 1884 to 2021 is increasing from having an increasing trend of 2.3 millimeter per year. On the right-hand side is the tidal data of Victoria Harbour. You can also see that there's 31 millimeter of increase in sea level, in the mean sea level in every 10 years. Incorporating the continuous urbanization, we can tell there's increasing flood risk in the city. As shown in some of the photos, flooding record that we have obtained. So how are we doing in Hong Kong? What have we been implementing to resist providing additional function or cope with in order to reduce the flood risk or cope with climate change or cope with the increasing rainstorm and tidal level? These are some of the measures that we have been implementing in Hong Kong. On the right-hand side is the runoff being intercepted by the drainage tunnel. Due to taking advantage of the hilly terrain in Hong Kong, we are able to design for intake to intercept the runoff, surface runoff from the uphill area. and to discharge it to the nearby coastal water bodies. So in a rule of thumb, is the amount of runoff being intercepted by the drainage tunnel is approximately 30% of the total runoff from the catchment, generally. And in terms of the other drainage improvement works, we also have stormwater storage scheme. So the purpose of the stormwater storage scheme is to attenuate the peak flow during severe storm events. So the water will be stored in the storage tank and wait for the rain to reside and having it to pump back or gravity discharge back to the drainage system in the downstream. So in general, the stormwater storage scheme is also capable to release to retain or attenuate about 30% of flow in the catchment. So number 3 of the flood protection measure is upgrading of the existing system. Having implemented item 1 and 2, we have already reduced the amount of flow by approximately 50 to 70%. So the required size of the drainage system has already been reduced significantly. But in terms of upgrading the existing drainage system these days, we are not really looking into just throwing bigger pipe and bigger pipe. This is not a sustainable design. So what we have been looking into is to assess the drainage system holistically, to identify area where there are spare capacity and to carry out drainage improvement works in terms of local catchment diversion. Just like when you are taking MTR in the morning, so you will be asked by the lady in the MTR station to go up front to the first compartment or the last compartment of the train to try to get you into the train. So that's something that we have been doing as hydraulic engineer to identify spare capacity in the drainage system instead of making the drain bigger and bigger and to cause a lot of disruption to the public as well as causing traffic impact and environmental impact. So this is the kind of flood protection measures that we have been implementing in a smart way. So some of the examples that we have been implementing in Hong Kong is the drainage tunnel. The first drainage tunnel in Hong Kong is the Kai Tak transfer scheme. Subsequently, we have the Hong Kong West drainage tunnel, Lai Chi Kok drainage tunnel, Tsuen Wan drainage tunnel. A lot of design considerations need to be taken into account when designing for the drainage tunnel, such as the location of the intake. We want to locate the intake of the drainage tunnel to make sure we are maximizing the runoff interception in the catchment, as well as increasing the amount of interception such that it is able to intercept the maximum amount of rainfall and providing the best benefits to the public. Also, the drainage design needs to take into account, the intake design needs to take into account the high flow velocity getting into the intake to make sure there's enough energy dissipation to get into the tunnel. So as engineer, we also need to take into the geological conditions of the tunnel, making sure it is constructible. In terms of environmental, having the tunnel, we have to make sure there's ecological flow, not to intercept 100% of the runoff from the catchment, but leave a small amount of ecological flow such that it will be conveying to the downstream. So as the hydraulic engineer, we have to take into account all these considerations when implementing the drainage tunnels. Next is the stormwater storage scheme. The first stormwater storage scheme in Hong Kong is the Tai Han Tong stormwater storage scheme. The second is the Happy Valley stormwater storage scheme, following with Shan Wan stormwater storage scheme and the Shenzhen River flood retardation pond. These are only some examples, and there are many others that are being implemented in Hong Kong. So every single storage scheme that I'm presenting here is site-specific or design-specific. As you can see on the top two photos, In the PowerPoint, the Taihantung stormwater storage scheme adopts a fixed weir design that overflow from the weir will be controlled by the fixed weir, but on the right-hand side of the photo, as shown on the right-hand side of the photo. Happy Valley stormwater storage scheme adopts a real-time control of the water level in the drainage system and control and using that control of the water level to create the movement or control the overflow, the weir level of the overflow weir. Shenwan stormwater storage scheme is slightly different in terms of it provides storage as well as it also provides a pumping station so that it is, because it is situated next to the ocean, so pumping station is required to discharge the stored water into the Victoria Harbour. In terms of the Shenzhen River flood retardation point, it's something different because there's no pumping station in the design, and it is also an open basin having the storage along the river. So overflow will occur going into the storage pond, and then after the rainstorm event, the water will reside and the penstock will be open to release the water back to the river. There's no pumping station or ventilation fan room involved in this design. So to combat sea level, similar to the Shenwan pumping station, we also have the Kaohui development stormwater pumping station to pump the surface runoff from the low-lying area back to the drainage system. These days, we have also been taking into account something, this is something more innovative in terms of using the storage volume of the river to develop the Yunnan Barrage scheme. These are some of the huge pumping stations for use for discharge of the stormwater during rainstorm event in low-lying area for discharge to the nearby water bodies. Similar applications have been used in Hong Kong or in overseas, such as the GIWW in the USA, another pumping station in Netherlands, and Marina Barrage in Singapore. They all adopt pumping systems such that during high tide, the pumping station will be commissioned and pumping the flow from the surface runoff from the upstream or flow in the river to the downstream over the tidal barrier. To fulfill the United Nations Sustainable Development as well as our Hong Kong's climate change plan in 2050, we have to prepare, reorganize our mentalities, and to enhance the absorptions of our city. So how have we been doing in Hong Kong in terms of preparing, reorganizing, and absorb the surface runoff? One thing that we are recommending to do is have a total water management in terms of water resource. Reservoir is actually providing a huge amount of storage in Hong Kong. Well, looking at the figure on the left-hand side, we have the reservoir during large river flow, during large rainstorm event. The reservoir will be able to serve as a storage to avoid excessive amount of flow being flowed to the downstream. And in the days when there's drought, then the reservoir can release a small amount of water to the downstream as ecological flow. In Hong Kong, we also have the water tunnel scheme. So one water tunnel scheme that I would like to introduce to you is the Plover Cove tunnel water tunnel scheme. The difference between this tunnel and the other drainage tunnel is it is in use during dry season and wet season. It provides a multi-function use over the year. So the PC tunnel during dry season when there's no rainstorm, it is actually conveying the water supply from Tai Po Toh water pumping station to Sha Tin water treatment works. And during the rainstorm event, the intake as shown in the middle of the photos. The intakes are actually intercepting the runoff from the upstream catchment, from the uphill catchment, to minimize the flood risk to the downstream. This tunnel is serving multi-purpose, and then is in use during dry season and wet season. Well, in terms of catch water, it is also one of the assets contributing flow to our reservoir as it is collecting surface runoff as the indirect catchment to the reservoir. This is also a unique design in Hong Kong that you don't see everywhere in the world. So I also mentioned about the absorption. Recently, we have a lot of blue-green infrastructure being adopted in Hong Kong. The concept of blue-green infrastructure is to increase the infiltration and to replenish the groundwater table, recharge the aquifer, in order to reduce the surface runoff. So some examples of the sponge city concept is the rain garden bioswale, as shown in the right-hand corner of the photo. So instead of having compaction, we have some filter media and some media with high permeability, such that the surface runoff on the swell can be infiltrated to the underground. This way, we are able to reduce the size of the drainage system instead of keep upgrading it, the pipe system as the infrastructure investment. So another idea is the porous pavement. It's also increased the amount of infiltration going into the underground. Another example is on the right-hand corner of the PowerPoint is a water harvesting system. So it is collecting runoff and increasing the co-use of the water resource, and so it can be collected, the water resource can be collected, being treated, and to be reused for other use such as irrigation, toilet flushing, or recycling. So in terms of having the green roof, I see a lot of examples when we have a building design and the designer would say, oh, we are putting all solar panel on the roof and we are not doing green roof. But in fact, we want to express this idea that the green roof or the solar panel is actually more efficient if working in a cool temperature. So the green roof will be able to help us with providing a cool environment to the solar panel, such that it works more efficiently to achieve carbon neutrality. So in addition to the bioswale or the green infrastructure, these days when we are doing design in terms of river work, we are also developing nature-based solutions. In the past, when we are developing the river training works, a lot of time the existing alignment of the river will be having a meandering shape, meandering alignment, and what we would do in the past would be just throw concrete into it and then make it a straight channel. But taking into nature-based solution, well, first of all, what we have to do is to take into account the existence of the floodplain, as well as any existence of the wetland that is providing storage to the adjacent areas. So instead of making a straight alignment, this day we will take into account these features in the existing river and to design the improved river channel. So in this case, this kind of design will be able to maintain biodiversity, as well as having the meandering channel. The flow velocity will be a lot slower to enhance the ecosystem by enhancing the habitat in the drainage channel. So what other benefits after having this vegetation or floodplain, maintaining this floodplain, what other benefits is achieved? Well, it will be able to mitigate the production of greenhouse emission, as well as mitigate the urban heat island effect and reducing the effects of global warming. So some of the constraints that we have to consider in the urban area when implementing this kind of green infrastructure is it's quite difficult to implement it in urban areas. Say, imagine if you want to implement like bioswale or this kind of river design in Mongkok or Causeway Bay, there's a lot of site constraint to implement those. So the opportunities need to be identified as well as the space adequacy we need to provide to adopt this kind of design. So how have we been doing? And then to identifying this opportunity comes when we are developing the new development area. And also like the recent Northern Metropolis development. So in terms of the application in new development area, so say for example, I am using the Yunnan South development as one of the example in this presentation. The Yunnan South adopts a smart, green, resilient concept in developing this new area. Key components of this development include the revitalization of the existing concrete channel to the green-lined river channel, incorporating the Hillside River with retention tank for storage, retention lake for storage. The river with high ecological value, we will be preserving those, as well as we are adopting the reed bed design for further natural polishing of the sewage effluent. So some of the river revitalization design is presented here. When we are doing river revitalization, a lot of the design consideration is the structural considerations and the adjacent features, whether there's road or whether the land requirement. So when there's limitation, we still try to maximize the greenings in the channel. And at the same time, we are taking into account like the horizontal or vertical connectivity, whether we want to maximize the connectivity vertically with connection to the groundwater, stormwater with the groundwater. So in terms of presenting this river revitalization, it will provide a vibrant environment to the community. The design is aiming to provide better leisure environment to the community, as well as maintaining or enhancing the biodiversity and enhancing the ecological habitat. So another features that we have designed in the Yunnan South is the Hillside River with the retention lake. It also includes a cycle track so that the residents or community can enjoy the natural environment. So in this design, so when there's storm event, it provides storage area such that the adjacent or downstream drainage system would not require as significant or big, or the size of the drainage system can be reduced. And then it also enhances the natural environment in the area. So during the wet season, it will serve as a detention pond, and in the meantime, it also provides recreational facilities to the public. Another feature next to the future sewage treatment works, the STP, the Yunnan South Effluent Polishing Plant, we are proposing the reed bed with storage capability such that it is providing further natural purification to the community. So in terms of having this co-use and bringing people into potential storage area, safety is another very important issue that we have to address before bringing people into potential flooding area. So flooding forecast and warning needs to be well established. And on the left-hand side, if we can receive any emergency alert before any flooding occurred or before any severe rainstorm event occurred, that will help to reduce the amount of damage that will be caused by the flooding. These days, a lot of R&D study is also developing the AI or future forecasting system to enhance the forecasting system. We are hoping to collect big data from the previous historical storm event and to use those data to train the hydraulic model such that accurate flood forecasting and warning system can be published to the public, such that they have sufficient time to respond and react before the flood comes. In Hong Kong, we are also providing a lot of warning, and public education is very important, such that during non-sunny day, then people will be aware and be careful about the potential flooding and to reduce the damage that may be potentially caused by the high storm surge location or the high flood risk area. Just like when if you see the weather forecast, you should be avoiding this kind of area to avoid damage and casualties. So in terms of having this public information disseminated, I think we in Hong Kong will be working on this to make sure we have an accurate forecast and to disseminate the information to the public. So last but not least, and we are looking into having this innovative idea incorporating into our flood protection measures, so that we will be teaming up with a lot of engineers in other disciplines. But most important of all, we are also teaming up with the public to raise their awareness such that they can also be able to take care of themselves during severe rainstorm events and to secure their safety. And the most important part is we are collaborating with the nature. We want to develop nature-based solutions such that we can adapt to the climate change. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's a very informative talk. I have a question for you. Is it how prepared do you think Hong Kong is for the worsening climate change to come? I mean, what we are working with preparing is for the present. How prepared are we for the future?
Well, as the climate change is quite uncertain, it's a bit difficult to say how well we are preparing. But we are, as engineers, all engineers in Hong Kong, are getting prepared and doing our best to secure the safety of the public. A lot of things should be kept in view, but at the same time, we are also making a lot of preparations for upgrading the drainage system or developing the nature-based solution to minimize the impact in case of the climate change emergency. So I believe that we do have the sense that we need to pay particular attention to this issue. I mean, with with climate change resilience, or with a mentality to have this idea being kept in mind. I think everyone in Hong Kong has been prepared to adapt with climate change.
In view of climate change, we have been using historical data all the time. What should we do to include an analytical tool to supplement or replace the historical return period method? And also, how do you think we should deal with the rising sea level, which has a backwater effect?
Well, in terms of having our design for the drainage system, we are not only using the historical analysis, we are also taking into account the AR6 analysis. Hong Kong Observatory is working on downscaling the climate change effects in Hong Kong. So these days when we are doing the design work, we are not purely doing the design based on the historical frequency analysis, but also taking into account the latest climate change data. So we are actually quite prepared for it, but in terms of having the continuous greenhouse gas emission and just having the uncertainties in terms of climate change is a bit of something we need to be continuously paying attention to. And in terms of the increasing tidal mean sea level, well, there are also quite a bit of drainage improvement measures that would tackle the increase in sea level, such as the pumping station in the downstream of a river channel, such that the tidal barrier can be installed in the downstream area. And in terms of conveying the surface runoff, then we have to adopt pumping in order to convey the runoff over the tidal barrier. If it is a small catchment, I mean, Hong Kong has been adopting polder scheme as well. So, but polder scheme may not be affected by the tidal level. And there are also proprietary products in terms of having additional pumping that would go against to facilitate the discharge of stormwater into the nearby coastal area. So, to fight with the sea level, I would say like having the new development area being planted, we should reduce the surface runoff by installing the blue-green infrastructures, and then take into account like a certain amount of stormwater storage into the new development area, such that the overall impact for the drainage system should be holistically examined instead of just fighting for a climate change system. There's really nothing or like minimal stuff or we can do about like the sea level increase, except for reducing the carbon emission. But if you are talking about like the sea level is already increased, then we may have to incorporate more blue-green elements into our development, such that the increase in urbanization can achieve a net zero increase in runoff in the future.
Thank you, Sylvia, for the very comprehensive account. So hope you still work with us for the coming project to protect Hong Kong. Thank you.